This essay example, as well as thousands of others, is available in text format on our website for free and without registration. Simply Google Ivy Panda Free Essays.
Introduction. United Nations is an international organization established in 1945 after the Second World War following the dire consequences of the First and Second World Wars. Although the First World War led to the establishment of the League of Nations in order to promote international peace and security, it failed to prevent the occurrence of the Second World War. To overcome the flaws in the League of Nations, the United Nations was formed on June 26, 1945, when the Charter of the United Nations was signed by member states. The functions of the United Nations, as stipulated in Article 1, include maintaining international peace and security, developing friendly relations among nations, promoting international cooperation in problem-solving, and harmonization of the collective responsibility of the nations. This essay examines the role of the United Nations in the maintenance of international peace and security and its effectiveness as empowered by the Charter. The United Nations Provisions. The Charter of the United Nations Article 24 empowers the Security Council to exercise the functions of the United Nations. According to the International Court of Justice, the United Nations members confer on the Security Council primary responsibility for the maintenance of international peace and security, and agree that in carrying out its duties under this responsibility, the Security Council acts on their behalf. The Security Council has the prerogative of determining the peace and security status of the member states by ensuring that every member has equal rights of protection. The Security Council should discharge its functions as stipulated in Chapters 6, 7, and 12 in the Charter of the United Nations. Chapter 6 of the United Nations Charter deals with the Pacific settlement of disputes. This chapter empowers the Security Council to call disputing parties to solve any dispute by negotiation, inquiry, mediation, conciliation, arbitration, judicial settlement, resort to regional agencies or arrangements, or other peaceful means of their own choice. The Security Council identifies, investigates, and recommends appropriate procedures for addressing situations that may threaten the maintenance of international peace and security to the International Court of Justice. In Chapter 7, the United Nations Charter gives powers to the security to determine the existence of any threat to the peace, breach of the peace, or act of aggression and shall make recommendations, or decide what measures shall be taken in accordance with Article 41 and 42, to maintain or restore international peace and security. The Security Council will use all means to make sure that all its members are protected against any threat to peace or aggression. In Chapter 7, the United Nations Charter empowers the Security Council to ensure that any regional arrangements that involve the maintenance of international peace and security should comply with the United Nations purposes and principles. According to Article 52, the Security Council shall encourage the development of the Pacific settlement of local disputes through such regional arrangements or by such regional agencies either on the initiative of the states concerned or by reference from the Security Council. The Security Council should be updated at all times about the activities undertaken or in contemplation under regional arrangements or by regional agencies for the maintenance of international peace and security. Since the United Nations Security Council is responsible for the maintenance of peace and security worldwide, then any issues related to peace and security are of great concern lest they threaten the peace and security of others. Effectiveness of the United Nations. The political nature of the General Assembly and the Security Council hinders the effectiveness of the United Nations in fostering international peace and security. Simon argues that the United Nations' efforts to preserve international peace and security are the most contentious aspect of its entire work because of the inherently political nature of its role. The resolution of conflicts and disputes depends on the political orientation of the General Assembly, Security Council, and member states, thus complicating the issues. The decision to invade Iraq was formulated politically by George Bush and Tony Blair to deceive the world that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. Prados and Ames argue that the evidence indicates the decision was made very early, long before ultimatums to Iraq or other diplomatic action. This shows that the main reason for the Iraq invasion was political rather than security reasons. Another case is the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union, which Baruch describes as the most important political and diplomatic issue of the early post-war period. The split of the Soviet Union was due to the political influence of the United Nations. Conclusion. The main reason for the establishment of the United Nations was save the world against the horrible consequences of war. Horrible experiences of the First and Second World Wars made world leaders come together and think of various ways of preventing the future occurrence of war. The United Nations, in its Security Council arm, is fostering international peace and security through legal procedures, diplomacy, and military peacekeeping. With this noble responsibility, the United Nations experiences undue political pressure as they maintain international peace and security. This essay on international peace and United Nations was written and submitted by a student just like you. The Ivy Panda Samples database hosts thousands of works similar to this one, on various subjects. Visit ivypanda.com to find what you are looking for, free of charge.